Welcome back to What We Don't Know. I'm your host, Xander Schultz. On this episode, I'm talking to Mondale Robinson. He's the founder of the Black Male Voter Project. They've been doing incredible work all over the country trying to organize black men to show up and turn out. My initiative, Defeat by Tweet, actually helps fund the Black Male Voter Project and their work. In this episode, Mondale gets into how to organize black male voters, his aspirations for black men and their participation in democracy in the future, and a lot of the incredible learnings he's had along the way. All right, let's get into it. Mondale Robinson, founder of the Black Male Voter Project. Thank you, brother, for carving out the time, chatting with us. I'd love to hear the origin story. Like, how are you where you are in the world? You know, you all have been super effective, one of the most important organizations, in my opinion, in this whole election cycle. So I'd love to hear, you know, how you got rolling with this thing.
Yeah, so I mean, the origin story is actually a lot older than my involvement in politics. My origin story of the organization and myself is growing up the grandson of a sharecropper and the son of a sharecropper, right? So my father and his father worked on a farm that neither of them owned or had dominion over. So my father had to stop school in third grade so as to prevent his father from losing the farm by being extra hands.
Third grade.
We know how that worked. Yeah. So, and we know all the trauma associated with that, especially when you couple that with the fact that the same farm that they were sharecroppers on, folk were, it was a plantation predating the sharecropping model.
Right.
But when my dad was a teenager, one of the white guys that he had grew up with on that farm, the farmer's son, smacked my grandfather. My dad reacted. My dad had to run away from North Carolina and they had to hide him in Virginia for a couple of years so the Klan wouldn't kill him. But when he came back, he got a felony conviction. That felony conviction for my father has affected everything I do in life. And it also is the origin story is part of the origin story for Black Male Voter Project, because my entire life after hearing that story, or like continuing to hear that story as a child, forced me to like want to know why this happened to my father, and also how it had a crazy impact on my life. We grew up extremely poor. I'm one of 13 from Eastern North Carolina. And it was directly related to my father's conviction. And I also knew that, you know, my father could do anything. The dude literally could build roads. I mean, like, he did it, paved driveways, put roofs on, lay anything with his hands and building. He was about it. But it didn't change the fact that we were extremely poor and also extremely black in Black North Carolina. But growing up, what I realized was my father was not an anomaly. He was more of the mean. Black men of his age had this story. It was either theirs or their father's story. So I began to trying to understand, like, why is this the case in this country who supposedly talks about the betterment of all folk and equality, which led me to politics, which I did for the better part of the past 20 years, and as a consultant and mostly as IE work. And I just witnessed a bunch of white consultants, mainly white men, talk about what was the best thing to do to move black men. And people just continued to praise them, what they were saying. Even for me, it sounded nonsensical at times, but for the most part, it just seemed ineffective and not working, mainly because if you look at the history, it showed that because majority of black men don't participate in electoral politics.
What were some of the worst ideas that kept being recycled despite low turnout? You kept hearing these ideas from these guys get funded that you're like, this is totally on the wrong track. That, you know, I'm sure some of that inspired you of like, look, these strategies work. I don't know why you guys are doing this. What were some of the things you were hearing?
Well, I mean, so we could talk about policy or tactics, and both of them are bad. Like, so for instance, the idea of talking to black people about black men, especially about those who don't participate. And if you look at the role of those who are already registered, nearly 50% of black men have not voted in 5 consecutive elections, right? So that's a powerful country, critique of how we play politics. So I think part of it is talking to black men about you're obligated to vote. You must vote because of your ancestors or what people died for to get you the right to vote. And it discounts the history and lived experience of black folk. If you consider, especially black men, if you consider what Maslow hierarchy tells us about people living on the margin, those who are insecure in their basic needs, their safety needs, which makes up part of their psychological needs, it is improper. It is improper or illogical for them to think that they're going to participate in things that are seen as self-actualization.
Right. So saying it back at you, that people were going at this community with like an ideological argument and not making a tangible argument about why this is going to have an effect on your life today, tomorrow, and the next day.
Well, I don't think you can make that argument at all. I think the argument that is not the argument to make, like, because Black people are gonna, especially with Black men who don't participate in electoral politics, what's gonna happen is you're gonna get severe pushback, and it's gonna lead, especially if you're talking about a national election, you're gonna say to Black men, hey, you gotta vote for Joe Biden because Trump is this, this, and this, and Black men are gonna tell you, my life didn't change under any president.
Right.
And this is consistent with people who are living on the margins and in a state of poverty that is like that like permeates their entire existence. So the correct way to conversate with Black men, especially those who are living on the margin, is not about a national election or a personality, be it Trump, Biden, or Barack Obama. It is though effective to talk about the issue that they find most important, not what the polls tell you. Because what happens is it's so much lost in polls and nuance. Like if you look at the crime bill, you would believe that the '94 crime bill, you would believe that 80% of Black people wanted more cops. What they really were saying, if you dig deeper, is we want to be policed like white people are policed. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So like the idea of more cops to Black people in that time when everything that was going on in the 80s and 90s, it seemed like, well, we need what white people got, and that seems like more cops. No, what they're really saying, if you dig deep and have a real conversation, is we want better cops, better policing of Black bodies. So without that understanding of like that, the number one interest for Black men isn't healthcare. It isn't who's the president. It's more about basic needs. Like we need to be secure in economic needs, which are trades back in school is the number one issue for Black men in this country, believe it or not. And if we're not talking about that, then you can say whatever you want to about either one of the candidates. It's not going to work. So this is not to say that Black men won't vote for Joe Biden. It is to say, though, talking about Joe Biden won't be the motivator to get
right. That's not going to get. That's going to get people to turn out.
Exactly. So we use what the lessons learned from Maslow hierarchy of needs, and also behavior psychology to change the way Black men look at politics, electoral politics. And we also don't play the transactional nature that exists in traditional campaigns. Another problem with that is, like with campaigning, the tactics is the transactional nature, trying to come to a community 2 months before and say this election is the most important, or this candidate is the most important.
Right.
You might as well just go back to the fried chicken and church fan tactic, because that shit ain't effective at all.
It's that people, other folks have talked about like using Black community like a credit card, like just go use it when you need it, and it's a get out of jail free card. And a lot of Black communities have felt like they've been used like that without actually being, people trying to talk to them and actually solve their issues. I've heard that a few times. So going back to, you're seeing these white consultants make these pitches, as you're thinking about, or maybe you're not thinking about it quite yet, building Black Male Voter Project, but you're seeing this happen. What happens next?
So what happens next is I decide to try to organize in a different way, something that's not transactional, not seen as it doesn't seem like overtly political or inherently political, but it absolutely is. So what we did was I literally took the last 5 years of my life, just gathering research on Black men. Basically, whenever I would do an IE project for somebody, I would always find a portion of their budget to focus solely on the lowest performing Black men in whatever state I was in, and using my tactics. And what we found out was when you engage Black men just like you engage anybody else, they vote just like super voters or at a higher level or equal to, which means voting is a habit that's formed by resources being spent on it. And it can't be any type of resources. It has to be true to like the ills that are affecting whatever demographic you're talking to. So with that information, I felt like, okay, if I keep doing this for other organizations who have an electoral only focus, what I'm going to do is become a part of the transactional nature that Black men see as problematic. So I said I need to do this on a permanent basis and be where Black men are all the time. So this is when I formed Black Male Voter Project.
You said a couple of things. You said, look, you need to talk to Black voters like we talk to all the other voters. And you said Black people want to have the same police system that white people have. Is it frustrating at times? I imagine, like when when we're talking about how to reform these systems, that like we actually do have the systems we need. There's all these examples of us doing it the right way for different segments of the population. We act like we have to be so imaginative to figure out how to appeal and be just to this particular demographic. I imagine that can be frustrating, as I've seen you kind of make that comparison twice now. It's like we have the right system over here.
They exist in healthcare, and I mean, like, if we want to affect Black lives in a positive way, treat them in the hospital like you treat white people. Like, if you look at the studies, ambulance get to Black houses couple minutes after they would a white house. Police respond slower to black problems in Black communities. If things were treated just like they are in white communities, I mean, you would extend Black life so much.
100%.
Just giving Black people the white experience in America. That's not to discount like what.
Just give that package. Can we get that package?
Let me sign up for the white experience, please.
So you have a theory of change around political power. Is that how we get there? Is that how we get to this more uniform experience, that investment in political power?
Well, here's what I tell people: our problems are systemic. So I hear people talking about capitalism as the answer, like, oh, if you just form Black businesses, and I'm saying, well, that's not really Black businesses aren't gonna address the problems that are plaguing Black people. We saw this in Wilmington with the race riots when they took over the government and ran out lawyers and doctors back in the turn of the century. We saw this in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We saw this
100%.
in Durham. We saw this when the federal government created redlining policies. So what I'm saying is capitalism isn't the answer. Policies are. Policies is an inherently political thing. In order to have people advocating for policies you support, they need to be elected officials. That, by definition, means part of the solution, a major part of the solution. Definitely, after educating folk, like you said, get your people. After I get my white people in line, my next thing is we need to get people of all races and colors and genders and non-gender conforming folk that think Black lives really should matter, and is affected or shown in their policies. So yes, I think politics is the answer.
Can we jump towards, like, I'm interested in, all right, we're building political power. What does the work actually look like? Like, I don't think a lot of people know, like, they're like, oh, there's community organized. They don't know what the day-to-day looks like, especially in 2020 in the midst of a pandemic too, which I'm imagining is wildly different than other years as well. So what does that work look like when you're going to build that political power?
Yeah, so for us, like I said, our program is not traditional, right? We automatically assume that we're trying to address 150 years in Black men, 150 years of being tested as a guinea pig, and try to make people feel whole. I say 150 years because, what happened in the 60s was not the first time supposedly Black men were given the right to vote. It happened with the 15th Amendment, right? So for 150 years, I tell people all the time, Black men have been ground zero on how you suppress votes, and ever since that day. So what we are doing is we automatically assume it's going to take 11 touches to move a brother from no faith in the political system in an election cycle to faith in the political system.
There's rational apathy, right? It's not just apathy; it's like rational apathy. You look at the history, and you're like, "Hey,
Xander. It ain't even apathy, brother. It's antipathy, and it's important that we make that distinction because.
Can you make that distinction for me? What do you mean when you say that?
So apathy is like, oh, I don't care about it, whatever. It's blasé, right? Like whatever. Antipathy means I have a fucking level of hate for this system, right? And that's different. And if you're going to somebody thinking that they don't care about something, your tactics are already wrong, especially when they hate it, right? So when someone hates something, that level of antipathy,
they're not neutral.
They're not neutral. Black men aren't neutral in politics. We have a serious hate for it, and rightfully so, because everything that's plaguing Black men are inherently political. And we don't present politics to Black men that way. We present it to them 4 years on a silver plate, like you said, in a credit card mentality. And I think that's the trash. That's the trash that lowers voter turnout, especially under the demographic I'm seeking to reach. So this is why it takes so many more times to address Black men, especially when you're thinking about the behavior psychology aspect of it and what it takes to change habits and break habits.
Right. So 11 touch points. What do those touch points look like? Is that door to door? Are we doing like what does that look like?
Yeah, it's multimodal, man. It begins with our conversations, which are called Brothers Be Voting. Those are our focus group to find out what's most important to this community. And in that conversation, there are no cameras, there are no white people, there are no women, It's only Black men. We bring in 2, 3, maybe. We try to have no more than 70 people. And out of those 70 people, we try to have no more than 4 politicians or people that play politics. So the room is filled with people who are gang members, people who are drug dealers, people who don't vote at all or vote very sporadically. And what we do is we try to figure out what issues are most important. We don't allow those who are politicians or politicos to control the conversation. And we let them learn, because what they find out real quick is the shit that they're saying that they were taught by the political parties is all the way off. It's all the way disconnected. So in this conversation, we filled out what issues are most important. And then from there, we build our platform. With that platform, we begin the engagement portion. We have a whole step 5 interactions that are not a part of traditional campaigns. And those 5 interactions, the first 5 are all about learning what's important to the Black man. Well, who do they see as leaders in their community? What issues are most important to their community? How are we going to make that community whole? So it's all about the humanizing of the political process for Black folk. And from there, we go to the building phase. Go ahead.
It seems to me like one of the mistakes consultants would make right off the bat, even if they if they had the questions you were going to ask, even if you gave them the questions you were going to ask, they wouldn't have built the room the way you're talking that you guys built it to. It seems like you're constructing these places so it maximizes authenticity. Like, you don't want other folks in there where people are trying to look good or sound a certain way. We just want as authentic answers as possible. And that's the type of things where if you're not funding Black leaders going into Black communities, you're going to miss that granularity, like that type of precision in how you get the actual right information.
And I think what you just said is spot on and important. And the sad part about it is there's so many people that look like me, bro, that play politics and won't say that to donors. Like it's not because I'm coy when I'm in a room, but I'm talking about some of our people are in a place where they can play politics. Unfortunately, playing politics is not what happens with Black men at the lower rung of life. They die from politics. We die from politics, and that's not hyperbole. That's real. So I'm obligated. I'm obligated to tell that truth, to say that you could definitely be an ally. You could definitely show up like you show up, Xander, and other folk. But you can't do this work in this way and expect it to be authentic, because, certain demographics being around certain people change what's going to happen and what's going to be said about and how they're perceived. Even with Black women in the room, sometimes it changes how brothers interact, and that's just
right.
That's something we have to come to grips with. And that's not a shot at.
We all try to sound a little different when women are around. So for sure, right? If you want to see, I don't know if it's men's true colors, but the room's definitely different when it's all men, for sure.
It just is, and I tell people all the time, like, this is my the barbershop talk thing that people try to do. It is improper, not just because you're going to get bad information, to bring white people to white candidates to the barbershop and think you're going to get authentic answers.
Right.
You're going to lie to you. You're just not going to hear. Sorry about that. This doesn't mean that people are going to lie to you. It just means that you're not going to get the whole truth, or people are not going to give it to you. But as soon as you leave, they're going to be like, man, what the fuck is this?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So and also what happens though is, even if people do bring somebody to the barbershop, like a politician or something, what you're doing as a politician is you're risking that person that brought you there, like the owner of that barbershop, you're risking their entire legacy and importance to the community. Because what happens is, once you get elected and do something that is questionable to the community, they're gonna be ridiculed about that.
You're tethered to them.
So in your transactional nature, it's delegitimize the entire person. It's an important person, because barbershops aren't just barbershops and places where Black men go hang out. These are spaces where we were only allowed to work at initially during slavery. And then once slavery ended, it became organizing spaces or safe spaces for Black men. So it is so dangerous that you are willing as a politician or anybody, a political, to use that space for such a transactional action.
All right, so you're hosting these community gatherings. You're getting authentic answers about what matters. What happens next?
Next becomes the engagement process that I was talking about. Those first 5 conversations with brothers, either at their door or on their phone. Our program is multimodal, on the phone, either texting or calling. And we're also doing digital targeting. So our program is a complete program to reach Black men. And it's all about that issue. It's all in the rhythm of the lived experience of Black men. And by rhythm, I don't just mean like to music. I mean the way we talk to each other, the way we interact. Our text messages don't sound like shit. Nobody else is saying it's like, yo, what's good? Yo, what's good?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, and it's important because it normalizes
It's
politics.
painful when that's mimicked too. It's almost worse when it comes from the wrong side. Like ESPN is hard to like listen to or watch these days because they do so much of that. You're just like, it's just worse when you're not who you are too.
That came out in another organization trying to mimic the work that we're doing. They have a name very similar. They created a name very similar to ours. I'm not even joking. They sent a text message to people like, I guess people told them about our text message program, right? And they sent a text message like aren't, spelled just like ARENT with the apostrophe and everything in the text message, comma, like they had all the commas and everything, and right?
Yeah.
Aren't you tired of the bullshit? But they didn't
using slang from the West Coast, talking to people in the South. Like, it
was just real bad. It was just real bad because they were like, and they didn't spell out the word. They put like hashtags instead of words. So I'm like, already you lost the population you're trying to speak to. First of all, you started out with aren't. You started out with aren't instead of ain't. You know, it's like you're trying to, and then at the end of it to show that, like, I'm gonna show you the nuance that really threw it off. In the middle of the message, they were like, aren't you tired of like taxes and this, that, and the third, like not having health care? And then they said, aren't you tired of Trump? And it's like, you've not polled black men at all, because if you would have, you'd have known that like adding that destroys your message to them at all.
Right.
You become a part of the party. Like, so yes, they are tired of Trump, but you can't present it that way. That's not how it's gonna work.
And what you're talking about, dude, at the crux of like all of this is we have lost so much trust everywhere. We've lost trust in institutions across the board. Like, we could talk about politics, but it's also true with banking. It's also true with like startup, look at how people are talking about Facebook now. We've lost, education, trust in all our institutions, healthcare. And so, what you all are adding back is like trust at its core. It's like, here's a group that's not here to use you in a way that like meets their end. Their end is you having representation, and we're going to talk to you in ways so we understand you. We're not trying to talk to you in ways so we can sell you. We're trying to understand you. That's fundamentally different. What are some of the biggest wins that have come out of this so far? When you're like looking back at everything that's happened, what are you like when you smile the widest? They're like, oh hell yeah, we did that. We actually did that.
Yeah. So I think beyond the amount of like interactions we've had with black men, like over 17, 18 million attempts to cycle at black men. Like, that is crazy to like just try to wrap my head around that. The fact
what's the metric? Attempts? Would you say 18 million attempts?
Like, yeah. So like texting, phoning, digital, all of that. Like, it's crazy to think that every black man, for instance, in the 17 states that we're in, every black man with a cell phone has been contacted by us multiple times. And that is so wonderful for me. And like, when you ask me what I smile about the most, it's when I think about the primary in 2020 in Georgia, Kentucky, and New York. If you think about what happened in Georgia this year, 2020, right? In the primary, we were able to turn out 134,000 black men who were already registered to vote, who had not voted in a primary since 2008. That means they didn't vote for Barack Obama in 2008 in the primary. They didn't vote for him in 2012 in the primary, but this year we turned out 134,000 of those guys. Now, that's two pieces of information in there. One says that these are not kids because they've already been registered more than 12 years. And it also says that personalities don't work, but issues will move brothers. So I was excited about that. Then we went to Kentucky, and
just to slow down, what were the results of that turnout? Like, what happened in those primaries?
Yeah. So a couple things. Where we were running our full program, counties like Gwinnett, we see there are no real drop off between the sheriff election and also the Senate election that was on the ballot as well. Like, so that, but then if you go to a county right beside us, like Cobb County, there's 70,000 drop off. So between the sheriff election, which is a competitive sheriff election there as well, and also the Senate race. That's one of the wonderful things. The candidates that we support are out there like that. Then another thing is we got a sheriff candidate, a black man sheriff candidate that is talking about ending cash bail, not shackling pregnant women. And people play games, say, oh, it's already illegal to shackle pregnant women. It's illegal to shackle, meaning where you put the cuffs with the chains to their feet. We have a brother that's elected that's not gonna put cuffs on.
That's anti. That's anti.
Yeah, that's exactly
not neutral there. That's a lot of people don't even know sheriffs are elected. That's. If we can, I imagine how well does that play when you're looking at what does move a community? Sheriff elections, district attorney elections, judge elections. Are you constantly finding that those are things where people are A, surprised that that's an elected position, B, they'll turn out for those positions?
I'm not surprised that people are turning out because I've been doing like that work. I can send you this video later that you can show it to people. Like 2015, before like VAs became the ideal of a progressive VA became a real thing. I was in
Right.
Mississippi. I was in Mississippi in a district that had never elected a black person as DA, in the 16th district with Scott Cologne. And when I got there, he was down 20 points. And running for DA against a 27-year incumbent who was a white guy in a district that is 5 counties, all majority white districts. When I got there, the strategy was talk to the traditional strategy, talk to the regular voters, talk to those who were likely to vote, and then also we need to convince some of these conservative voters to come over. Well, anyway, I said no, hell no to all of that. I just hired a bunch of people that had been affected by the DA and trained them on like what cultural appropriateness about conversations were. And long story long, Scott Cologne, who was 32, running his first election, defeated a 27-year incumbent by maximizing the black vote and getting the white voters who already were going to support him. So what I say is I'm not surprised about people turning out about these elections, especially because Forrest Allgood was considered one of the worst DAs in the country. When people realize that you can run against these people and people usually don't, that's what is like surprising to me, the fact that so many people don't know that DAs and sheriffs are elected officials. Plus, because there are 2 visions of sheriffs in this country. For white people, they see John Wayne and Wyatt Earp. For black people, sheriff is not that. We have a different vision of what it means to be a sheriff. This is the person who runs that nasty ass like box down there where your cousin, brother, or maybe even you have spent time for some shit that probably could have just been a citation and kept it moving. Or you're sitting here because you can't afford to get out because of this debtor's prison that we call cash bail.
Yeah, these local officials, like these sheriffs and DAs, they have an incredible amount of power.
They do.
And the justice system is primarily local, right? Like as much as we're talking about during the presidential debates, it's county and state level officials that are deciding what happens there. So I cut into it because I had to clarify a few things, but the voter turnout number in Georgia is wild. It's a wild number. It's like it's almost hard to fathom that many people turned out, and it sounds like just all the down ballot stuff that ends up happening when you see that turnout is just really kind of, it's the type of thing we need if we're going to really start moving towards racial justice, is those down ballot races. And so you all are doing that work. So I asked what makes you smile kind of in the big picture. Was there anything during this cycle that was like the most memorable in the small picture? Like anything that made you the most emotional when you were doing this work?
There some of the brothers from the Brother Be Voting conversation, some of those guys who like came in saying, I'll never vote, I don't vote, it ain't for me. And then by the end of the evening, they were like, how do I go get registered? I'm gonna vote this cycle. And then like checking the voter file and seeing that they voted. Like that shit is, that makes me look at my father and be like, bro, I do it for you.
That's incredible. That's really amazing. One thing I want to talk to folks about, because I think, it's great talking about the wins you have now. I think we've never really had a country where Black organizers were supported consistently in between election cycles. We've never seen what that country looks like. This election cycle has been interesting in that I think there's more money there than there's been in the past. I can't prove that, but it's my sense of the situation. But we've never had a 10-year sustained run of just Black organizers nationwide being funded. What happens if Black Male Voter Project is consistently funded to the degree you'd like it funded to in, say, the next 2 election cycles, the next 8 years? Like, what do you think can happen? What are you most excited to pull off for the next 8 years?
I'm most excited to show people what real progressive DAs look like. I'm excited to show people how Black men began to become the largest voting bloc in mayoral elections because mayors hire police chiefs and police chiefs control culture of their departments, and police brutality is a real thing for Black men. I'm excited to show people what equality look like, and also how it's beneficial to have more Black men participate in electoral politics, not just for Black men, but for everybody living on the margins. Everybody. So that's what I'm excited about. And in a real way, we're going to close that gap between Black men and Black women from 10% to this election cycle to 4%. And then going forward, hopefully we just eliminate it altogether.
What is that number? What's the number right now of turnout percentage?
10%. Black women vote 10%. 10% higher than white Black men.
What is that? What is the number? Like they're at 50 and black men are at 40, or what is do you know what the number's at?
I think it's 54-44, something like that.
54-44. And closing that gap's the big goal.
It's my goal.
Wow. Man, I hope you pull it off. I know you're at the airport waiting for this flight. I don't know if you have to run right now. I know we're over our time. I'm just looking through some other questions if there's anything else I wanna ask you. Not really. We touched on a lot of it, man. I guess all I want to do is just thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. It's pretty incredible what you're all pulling off, and it's an honor to, be able to support you in some capacity.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate what you do. And this is big. Trust me, it's not a small thing. I appreciate it.
All right, man. You take care. Safe travels, all right?
Peace. You got it.
Thank you for listening to What We Don't Know. If you're looking for more content like this, you can head over and be a supporter on our Patreon, patreon.com/WWDK. You can also follow us on social. We're WWDK Pod on Twitter and Instagram. I hope this finds you happy, healthy, and safe. All right, take care.